Welcome to the show. How you doing? It's IB Nation Sports Talk. We're doing things a little bit differently tonight. No, it's not me going solo. I see Salty actually, like he's anticipating a Jesse show tonight, but it is actually one Dean Vince D'Addario doing the show
Yes,
tonight.
sir. Yes, sir.
And it's actually not just Vince. It's like we're splitting this thing in half. Vince has someplace he has to go tonight. So Vince, because Jesse is in Cleveland and Vince and I were at practice today. Vince and I are doing the first half of the show, talking a little practice, talking about practice.
Yeah, we are.
Doing that. And then Jesse is coming in. He's our closer for the night.
It's true.
He'll be doing rapid fire. So
if we wouldn't get a copyright infringement, you should just play Enter Sandman when he comes in. A little closer action.
We had that on our not like walk-up music, but during like batting practice, infield, outfield, and stuff like that. That was one of the first songs on the pregame disc that we had out there. So
back in the day when it was on a disc.
Yeah, that's right. I've always felt like that's a baseball song because, like, it's absolutely. Like you hear Enter Sandman. It's it's like, what do you think? Right away.
First thing I think of, 100%.
Yeah, like it's a baseball song. So, all right. So we've got practice stuff that we're going to get to, and again, we're going to talk a little, a lot of offensive coordinator, what's going on with that, some different things like that, and rapid fire at some point. Little Steve Angeli from post-practice today as well. Right. But something that we learned before we get to the practice stuff, Vince, something that we learned after practice. Notre Dame's new left tackle was one of the players that we got to talk to after practice today. And now, I'm not saying his name because it turns out we've been saying his name incorrectly.
No way.
We've been saying it wrong.
No way.
I know it's hard to believe that anyone on any of these, the Irish Breakdown channels would be saying someone's name wrong.
I could have sworn I heard him introduce himself the way we've always said it.
Interesting.
Just saying.
Well, he was asked, the last question he was asked today at his media session after practice, how do you say your last name? What? It's telling me
no.
It's telling me it's too short. What?
How is it too short? What's too short?
You're kidding me. I've got this all set up and ready to go, and it says that it's too short because it's literally, like 2 seconds because he says his name. Hold on, I'm going to try. Now I've got all this weird stuff going on. I have no idea. Why would it not play because it's too short? That doesn't even make sense. Try this one more time. You've got to be kidding me. It says your video is a bit too short. This feature works best with longer videos. You're killing me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, it kind of ruined the bit, but he's Jagusah.
Oh God, that's not even
says it's pronounced.
Jagusah. So that's different than anything anybody's ever been saying.
Yes, we've been saying Jagusah, right?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Jagusah. It's like Jagusah or Jagusah, but it's like a combination of the two.
Jagusah. I've got the proof. I just it won't let me play it because it says it's too short. So I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll put it on a loop and I'll put it in here tomorrow or something. But it's not letting me do it right now. If you want, I can literally edit it into a loop while you're talking here in a minute.
Jagusah. Okay.
Jagusah.
All right.
Yeah.
And get on board. It's just gonna take me a minute. That's Jagusah.
Jagusah. Like jaw, like your jaw. Goo, like a big pile of goo. Saw, like you're cutting wood. Jagusah. Yeah.
Okay. You remember who the original big tub of goo was?
Terry Forster.
Was it? I thought it was the May kid from
Oh, well. Sean May
Yeah.
from Indiana. That's
Yeah.
right.
Uh,
We're living in a different world now, Vince. We're not allowed to make fun of people's weight. So,
I mean,
you know
my
how
kids
that
make fun
works.
of me all the time.
It's
So
been almost 20 years ago. Well, but they're you know what I'm talking about.
I
So,
do, as I'm sipping a Coke while we're having this conversation.
that's right. Fat shaming, not the way to go. And you know me, like I've been, losing and gaining weight my whole life. So, like it's not like I'm one to talk anyway. So let's talk a little bit about practice, though, after we got
Yes.
Charles Jagusah's name out of the way. And they're going to say it wrong on TV, by the way.
Oh, they're gonna
They
butcher it
get the chance.
on next
Yeah.
Friday or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to go see a little bit of practice. We got to see some stretching in the first 3 periods. Was it everything that you hoped it would be, Vince?
The biggest surprise or whatever to me was as I was walking to the indoor facility, the Irish Athletics Center, all I wanted to know was what number CJ Carr was going to be wearing. That's all I cared about. And I got my answer the second I walked in the door, because of course he's in the back because he's a freshman. What, is he even a freshman? Like, so he's like, he's in the back and he's obviously wearing a red jersey. So figured it out real fast. Number 17.
17.
So we know that obviously Riley Leonard was not going to be giving up 13 anytime soon.
Well, now here's one thing. I don't know that that's necessarily his official number.
Oh,
because as we, when I walked in, you guys were in there, you and Brian were in there, and then I walked up and you talked about, a lot of these guys aren't necessarily wearing their own numbers. They're wearing scout team numbers.
this is true.
The Oregon State quarterback, guess what his number is?
17.
17. So I'm guessing that CJ Carr was wearing a scout team number today.
I mean, that's definitely possible. Would you put a kid who's been in your program for 24 hours as the scout team quarterback?
Well, they had Dylan Devison working with the wide receivers. They had Kenny Minchey. Kenny Minchey's the number 2 now. Steve Angeli's the number 1.
No, that's. I mean, all points you make are good.
All you got to do is go out. You basically, how a scout team works. It's like like your coordinator is going to come up to you. Yeah, that's right. And it's like, okay, this is what you're going to do on this play. Sure. It ain't that complicated, right? This is what Oregon State does. This is what we want you to do.
Yeah.
And the Oregon State quarterback wears number 17. So I don't think that he's going to end up wearing 13, as we've talked about, because Riley Leonard wears 13. But I would wager a pretty hefty sum that he doesn't end up wearing number 17 next year either. Unless he just decides like, oh, I came in with it, I'm going to keep it now.
Ooh, that could be a fun wager.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it makes sense
about that.
Because there were only 3 quarterbacks because, again, they put the walk-on Devison with the wide receivers today. There were only 3 quarterbacks. Somebody's got to be the scout team guy. And the new guy, right?
They did, but he didn't go through any of the team, like, when they had the wide receivers working with the quarterbacks. He didn't do any of that stuff. So I still feel like he could have been the scout team guy. Just saying.
Okay. I still think CJ Carr. I still think, considering other guys are wearing scout team numbers and CJ's the new guy on the block. I think it was.
Yeah, it could have been.
I think that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, here's my only pushback. I'm going to do devil's advocate here. My only pushback to that is the whole reason for him coming in was to start learning, the offense and
I don't think he's learning the offense now, though.
Like terminology, just like even terminology, formations, shifts, motions, all that terminology type stuff, unless they use the same terminology for the scout team, which is definitely possible. I don't know.
I mean, Ben Gulbranson, Oregon State quarterback, number 17. I don't think you're your freshman, fresh off the Saline, Michigan, or Saline. I don't know exactly how you say it up there in Michigan. There are different ways. Like where I'm from Salina, Kansas. Saline County, but but obviously they're different. So I don't know if it's Saline or whatever, Michigan. I don't even know what I was saying at this point. I got so sidetracked on that.
It's all good. No,
yeah. Oh yeah, he was coming down from there. My point is, I don't think that they were like dropping the playbook on him right away. I think he's the low man on the totem pole. You do what low man on the totem pole, guy does. And right now, that's preparing your team to play in the bowl game. So
fair enough.
But hey, we only got to see 20 minutes of practice. So it's not like we got to see
15 minutes of actual practice. The rest was stretching. And I tried to watch a little bit extra, and I got turned away. So I was a bad boy.
But the other part of that is whether or not CJ Carr was scout team quarterback or number 3 quarterback or whatever it happened to be, like that ball he threw.
Oh, baby. I'll tell you what. So as the team was finishing up their warm-ups, the 3 quarterbacks and the quarterback's coach, Gino Gaduli, they were throwing the ball, just getting warmed up. It's like, when the baseball players go down the foul line and they just start warming their arms up, and it was just different, man. Like watching CJ Carr and to a very similar degree, Kenny Minchie throw the football was just different than the balls that were coming back the other direction from Steve Angeli and Gino Gaduli. Now, Gino Gaduli is a grown man who still throws a nice ball for a grown man.
He does.
Right? But the balls were just different going the one direction than they were coming back the other direction. I mean, they would just, as our boys on the Lucky Lefty podcast say, they just spin it different. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, man. The ball just comes out so easy, so effortlessly, smooth on a line. I mean, just it's so smooth, man. Just so smooth.
Great mechanics, like none of that stuff that you have to worry about. It looked good. It looked like what you expected it was going to look like with all the hype around him and everything else. Like we've seen, it's one thing to kind of see some of it on the video and in the games and everything, but another thing to see it up close and personal. It looked good.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. And all they were doing was playing catch. They would go on, they were going from like an angle. They would throw it at an angle, and then they would flip angles, and then they would kind of go on the run and just do a couple of different things just to get warmed up. I mean, it was nothing major, but.
And I like how Brian is just so locked in, man. Even like it's like 3 guys and the quarterback's coach playing catch, and it's like he is focused. He is laser focused on watching that, and it's like you can't say anything to Brian when that is going on.
Well, did you read his practice?
Get out of
report?
My sphere of influence.
Did you read his practice report?
I did. I saw.
He had notes on every single position group,
and he wasn't taking notes on anything.
No, it's all in the steel trap,
right?
And I mean, he had very technical. He's like.
Which is very ironic because he can't remember a single thing that we ever talk about. We talk on the phone. I can say this now. We're having fun, right?
Yes.
Like, you've been there before. You can't remember a single thing that you say in a conversation 2 minutes after you have the conversation, but he can watch a practice and take the kind of mental notes and regurgitate it all just from the top of his head later on.
My favorite part of the practice report was he's like, yeah, the linemen weren't really doing much, so I don't have a whole lot to say. And then like 400 words later about the offensive line, I was like, dang, I didn't think you were paying that close attention. Like it was impressive, man. It was very impressive what he was able to take away from practice. But I tell you, there was a lot of fun stuff to see at practice, though. Even though we just got to see individuals, we got to see Mike Brown, what he was doing with the wide receivers. And I mean, just literally going back to the fundamentals and how that they were operating and doing certain things like the top ends of their routes. And he was coaching fundamentals, man. It felt like an August 1st practice, not a December 19th practice with the way that he was coaching these kids up. You know what I mean? And I realize he's new to the group and he's new to the staff. And so he's kind of starting at ground zero, and he just gets to do it a couple of weeks early, basically, right? He gets 15 extra practices that other guys aren't going to get who are coming
Mhm.
onto a staff, because they're not going to get their hands on these kids until spring. And so he's taken full advantage of these kids. And so he was very fundamental with his coaching.
And even just like the early stuff when they're going through warm-ups, it reminded me a little bit of what Clark Lee, you know, like you would always see Clark Lee
Yeah.
sprint from station to station and stuff like that. And they weren't necessarily, you know, sprinting from station to station, but Mike Brown was out there doing, you know, like the warm-ups with the wide receivers, whatever they were doing, you know, whatever, you know, warm-up it happened to be, they were doing the same thing, you know, whether it was like a straightforward jog or, you know, like a little sidestep stuff or back, whatever it was, he was doing it right along with them, you know, and mixing it up in there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Just little things like that, I think, are important.
It was awesome. So, you know, I enjoyed watching him. I mean, that was a lot of fun. And the receivers that have been injured, right? They look good as far as the way they were moving around. They didn't seem to be hampered by anything. So, you know, like hamstrings. I mean, Sean, you and I both know hamstrings, it takes time. And they've had the time and they look good. Go ahead.
No, I was pointing at you. I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yes. No, they look really good.
That's a good point. Yeah, because like Jaden Thomas, for example, you know, we didn't necessarily see Jaden go, you know, like full out, all out sprint or anything like that. But the movements that he did, you know, kind of nice little jump ball on that back corner fade in the end zone when they were doing the one-on-one stuff, and just the times that we saw him running.
Yeah.
He looked like, you know, good old Jaden Thomas, and Deion Colsey looked solid out there as well. You know, it had been a long time since we'd seen Deion Colsey, you know, do any running. So I thought that was a great sign to see both of them out there and looking pretty sharp out there in the early portions of practice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And KK, I thought looked really, really good. You know, we haven't really seen him practice, obviously, right?
It's funny because, you know, again, like reading what Brian had in his notes, Brian said that KK, he's listed at 6 feet tall. Brian said that he was taller than he thought he would be. I thought he was shorter than I thought that he would be. He does not look like a 6 foot tall guy.
I remember
he's tall. He's, you know, he was standing around some taller guys, but he looked more, you know, I don't want to take anything away from him, but he didn't look 6 foot tall.
I remember walking past him in fall camp because he was obviously on the sidelines with his arm in a sling.
Right.
Not 6 foot tall. Sorry, folks. If his parents are watching, I apologize. Your kid's not 6 foot tall. He's much shorter not much shorter, but he's definitely shorter than that. There's no doubt about that. But I thought he moved really well. You know, he's quick in and out of his breaks. I really like the way he moves his feet. I thought he had good hands. And the amount of time that we were able to see him catch the football, right? No, I was impressed with him. I think he's gonna help this team out. He's gonna help this team out in the bowl game, and then obviously moving forward as well. I think
so as well. Today. This is a big opportunity, I think, for him because of where they are at the wide receiver position right now, and like for him to be fully healthy, and again, like we didn't get to see him during training camp, so we have really nothing to compare it to. But I liked his routes, I liked his quickness. He's pretty smooth, just the way he looked out there, I felt like. And, like to me, probably the receiver who stood out the most is Jordan Faison. And that's really not a surprise just because everything that we've seen of that guy really stands out. I know you want him to wear a number other than 80. Speaking of numbers, like what number would you put on Faison if you had your choice?
Oh, a single
digit, or you want a double digit?
Absolutely a single digit.
I think I want to see one. I want to see one on it.
Oh, interesting. Well, there's obviously no one on offense, and there's only going to be a one on defense that we're aware of for one more game, right? So, yeah, I could see a one. I mean, he could take two. Let's see what else is available. 4.
Somebody, I think I can't remember if it's Mitchell or Collins. One of those guys is taking 4.
Okay. You know what? It was Collins. I remember because Bo Collins was 80 And I thought maybe coming in, he would take 80, from Faison. I would be like, good, get Faison a single digit. And but then I saw his pictures and he was in 4.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So he must be changing up. And he's always been in the 80s, even in high school. So I find that switch to be very, very interesting as well. But I think 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I think it's time to see an
all
offensive
available.
guy wear number 1. Because that's been.
When was the last time? It was a wide receiver, right?
It's been a while, like a long while. Remember the one, I think it was 2016 when everything, just fell apart. Wasn't that the year that, like, if you played well, you were rewarded in the next game? You got to wear number 1. Remember that?
Dumb.
When they tried that? And I think they scrapped
that.
it like halfway through the season because the season was just in the toilet by then.
That was dumb.
Yeah.
Cam Williams was number 8 in high school. And the 8 is available, I do believe, offensively. So I would be surprised if he doesn't go with number 8.
Yeah, Decaf 18 saying 00. I don't know if you can actually do 00.
I've never seen 00. Yeah, I've never seen 00 before. So
you can do 00 in basketball. I don't think you can do it in football. I think it's just 0 that you're allowed to wear.
Yes,
football.
I've seen, and obviously that'll be available as well.
Yeah.
Offensively.
Yeah, Minchie wears number 8.
So that's right.
Spoken for.
Minchie is 8. My bad, Parks. You're right. Michael Parks is the one that brought that up. You are 100% correct.
Yep.
I was kind of hoping that CJ Carr would don a single digit, actually, but
still might.
Still could.
Considering he's wearing a scout team jersey right now.
I see CJ as number 3, but obviously that's taken. So I would like to see him as 3 instead of 13.
3 instead of 13? That wouldn't be bad.
I would like that.
I mean, if he really wants 13, he's only got to wait a year.
Yeah, anyway, exactly. And he's not going to play this year. Sure. So there's going to have to be a lot to go wrong for him to play this year. So,
yeah. They did the most excitement that we got to see was the first actual period when they went down and they were doing one-on-one DBs versus receivers,
right,
with the throws to the end zone. And the 2 plays that stand out, the one, I think that, everyone, kind of got the team went nuts and all that stuff. Chris Tarrick, number 55, offensive lineman, caught a touchdown pass from Steve Angeli. They let a couple linemen go out there, and everyone went nuts. When he made a catch, it was for an offensive lineman, especially, it was a nice little catch that he made. But the most impressive play down there was the Faison play when he turned Clarence Lewis basically inside out on that ball.
There were a couple. That one was obviously very, very impressive. I was like, oh, Clarence. Like that was like, oh. And then also the Love play. He went out and he made Jalen Sneed look a little rough. He did a little out and up, and Jalen bit hard on the out and just could not recover. And then a little toe tap in the back of the end zone there by Love. I thought that was a nice little catch. And then, of course, the offensive lineman who caught it over his shoulder, which, by the way, not only was it a great catch, but it was a friggin' dime thrown by CJ Carr as well. Like he placed the biscuit in the basket on that one. I mean, that kid's got some touch.
Nice ball. Nice
yes,
ball.
It was. Yes,
especially for a scout team quarterback.
Yeah, right. Look, if he's the scout team quarterback, I mean, obviously he's going to get a rude awakening playing against this defense.
Right.
But at the same time, they're going to see some zip on the ball that these defenders have not seen in practice in a long time.
True. I mean, more than really of the guys on the roster, Kenny Minchie comes the closest, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. Like I would put CJ's ball number 1. I would put Minchie just below, and then it's a bit of a drop off, and you get to Steve Angeli, and then just below him would be Gino Guidugli.
Well, because like even Hartman, better than what Hartman.
Oh yeah. Was. 100%. It's stronger. It's got a tighter spiral. It's more on a line. Like even if Hartman was still on this team, honestly, I I like Carr and Minchie better than Hartman, if I'm being honest. Just from a
Yeah.
simple throwing
Just
the
from
ball.
a ball, just the way they
Right.
throw the ball. There are obviously
Right.
other things that go into
Not
playing
decision
quarterback
making and
yeah.
all of the other things, but just the ball itself. I would put CJ and Minchie top 2, even if Hartman was still on the roster. Yeah.
David Carpenter, I'm not really understanding this question. Is the spin different from Minchie and CJ left versus right-handed? Both
Well, they're
right-handed.
both right-handed. So, David, I don't know what to tell you on that one, brother.
By the way, I think the men's basketball game, John, with a prediction, 66-53. I think it started at 6:00.
It did
tonight.
It
a
did.
little earlier start time on the ACC network, I believe.
And I've been getting texts from people. They can't find it on the radio. And apparently it's not playing where it's supposed to be playing.
Uh-oh. Wonder what's going on there.
I don't know. I'm going to text our buddy Jim and find out.
Like you have control over why it's not on the radio.
Right.
At this
I know.
point.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just go to odyssey.com.
Yeah, just go to the app.
AUDACY.com.
Yeah. Just go to the app, baby.
There it is. That's like,
yeah.
Find it there. It's the best we can do. I guess the other play that stood out on that one-on-one, Jeremiah Love versus Jalen Sneed.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Love with a nice little out and up and beating Jalen Sneed pretty badly on that play.
The toe tap. I mean, I'm not sure what was better, the route or the toe tap in the back of the end zone, but
there was some dispute over whether or not he got the toe down, but I felt like he did.
Oh, I think he might have gotten both, to be honest with you. He definitely got one, but it looked like he got both. Like it looked like it would be good in the NFL.
Yeah,
frankly. So, but
I thought so as well.
Look, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with some of the talent that's going to be on the offensive side of the ball in a week and a half. I do. I think you're going to get plenty.
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw him going up against Air, yada yada yada, but Jaden Thomas and Deion Colsey are veterans, and they both look like they're 100% right now. Jeremiah Love looks really good. Again, we only got to see a little snapshot, but talking to him after practice again today is what like he's ready for this opportunity. Like he's obviously him and the rest of the guys in the room. They're all going to get more opportunities than when Audric was here, and he said there was never any jealousy or frustration or anything like that. The fact that he came in, he knew he was a freshman and he was completely willing to do his time and do his learning and all that different kind of stuff. But he's also ready for his opportunity now. It's like the first chance he's going to get to kind of show a little bit more about what he can do. And the other backs are in that situation as well, because they're all going to get, they all get pushed up into some different roles with Audric being gone.
Yeah, no, I would love to see, some two back, right, with like Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, and then you motion Jeremiah Love into the slot, let him cook a linebacker. Like I think you could see there's a lot of things that you can do with the talent level that is on this team, and you're going to have to be a little bit creative, I think, if you're the offensive staff. I was going to say Gino Gaduli, but I don't know how much specific input he's going to have. He's going to call the plays, obviously, but I just think that they are going to need a little bit of creativity, but I think that creativity can really spawn the rest of the offense, get them going, a chunk play here, chunk play there, and then you can drive it home with these guys between the tackles or sweep, whatever, right? But I just think that, throwing a few things at Oregon State that maybe haven't been on film, up to this point, because obviously none of these kids are on film really. Let's have some fun with this thing. Like that's what I want to see. I want to see this offense opened up a little bit, but have a little bit of fun. You can still, be ball control and do all the things that I'm sure Marcus Freeman wants to do because he knows what kind of defense he's got. But open it up. Let good old peanut butter and jelly have some fun out there. Let them play some loose.
We're going to have to set an over-under, I think, on how many pass attempts come on Notre Dame's first drive of the game.
Over-under 1.5.
Run versus pass. Yeah.
I mean, my opinion of Steve Angeli and what the passing game could potentially be in the bowl game was confirmed, I think, today for the most part, just watching him throw the football. Even in the one-on-ones, like not super accurate at times. It felt like, just not, I don't know. I would feel much better putting the ball in the stomach of some of these running backs.
Well, and look, I realize he completed 75% of his passes and the opportunities that he had this season, but a lot of them, a high percentage of he completed a high percentage of his passes, right? A high percentage of them were basically layups. They gave him some easy passes. He completed them, which is great. He didn't have rubber arm and didn't
for sure,
crazy. He didn't throw him into the ground like like Drew Pine did last year when he was first out there. But it's a little bit different, I think, when you're running the full offense and you get asked to do some different things. It's different when now you're in there in the first and second quarter and it's 3rd and 10. What are you gonna? What's he gonna do in that situation? What are they going to ask him to do in that situation?
Right. And I think that this is going to be, and maybe this will be music to people's ears, but I think you're going to see a little bit more play action, because I also think that you're going to need to use play action more to get guys open for Steve Angeli to hit them on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Like he's not going to be as accurate as Sam Hartman is. He's not. And so I think you're going to need to manipulate the defense a little bit more to get guys open a little bit more in order to have success in the passing game.
Yeah, I agree. Bailey Brad says Steve's a gamer. He's not worried. Okay, we'll see. Is he a gamer or is he an end of gamer? There's a difference.
That's a good point, because Ian Book was an end of gamer, not a gamer.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe Ian Book.
Things changed. The greater the sample size got for Ian Book, the more things changed. Like that Pittsburgh game, that first season was the example of that. The way they sat on everything short, and it made it pretty ugly. Mm-hmm. And Notre Dame was just able to squeak that thing out there. And the more, again, like the greater the sample, there were things that he could do. Like people want to talk about what Notre Dame did and what Sam Hartman did, good competition versus bad competition. Again, like you go back to that first season for Ian Book, and there was a clear delineation between what he was doing against Group of 5 competition and what he was doing against Power 5 competition. I think it was 15 of his touchdown passes came against the Group of 5 teams.
Right. Year. Yeah. Yep. And still got Heisman votes somehow. Yeah. So, there it is.
Yep. I mean, we'll all find out about Steve Angeli together. Look,
this is his audition. Honestly, this is his audition. Honestly, I think this is his tape that he's going to be able to use if he ever hits the transfer portal.
Save that. I got some. Some Steve Angeli talking about the transfer portal from after practice today.
Oh, okay. All right.
We'll save that here for a few minutes. Before we move on, Charles Jagusah. I'm not saying it wrong. I'm going to tuned in late
every time.
Jagusah. What did you think of what you saw of him? He had a knee injury in practice. He wasn't really able to move very well. For basically half the season is what he was talking about. And he's definitely able to get lower, I think, now. And I think that it makes a big difference. Not that we saw a ton from him today, but you could see a difference just in the way he's able to use his legs and things like that now more.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things that everybody loved about him the most is his flexibility, his feet, his movement, the way he's able to do, certain things coming in, and that leg injury really kind of set him back. I mean, it really set him back. And so the fact that he's back to 100%, or at least as close to 100% as he's been in a really, really long time, to lock down the left tackle position, Sean, in like 5 practices is really impressive. Like really impressive, or however many practices that it's been since they started practicing for the bowl. I mean, he unseated 2 guys that have been in the program for a while. So that says a lot to me about where he's at with his recovery and where he's at trajectory wise moving forward. There's no doubt about that.
Right. So Jesse's going to be along here in a little bit. I have no idea when he's going to show up. So we've got a few questions from the chat, and people can keep kind of throwing their other questions in. We'll do some of that here while we wait for Jesse to get in for rapid fire. So I feel like there's a couple that we've got to start with. First, from DK, will you please answer one of Tommy's questions? He's a good boy, and it's all he's asked for Christmas. Tommy was in here. I think he thought today was Wednesday, and he started throwing a lot of different questions in the chat. And then I saw him realize, oh, it's only Tuesday. But Tommy, just for you, hopefully you're still here. He says, do you think there would be less opt-outs if the bowl game started just 1 week after conference championship games?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Do you?
Now, if those bowl games were part of the playoff, then no. But if they were just bowl games, then yeah, I do think that there would be the same amount of opt-outs because it's now a status symbol to opt out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the timing of the game makes much of a difference, to be honest with. I think there would still be the same. It would just come a heck of a lot quicker than it did this time around because there's not as much time, in between.
See, personally, I think with playoff games, you're just going to see more opt-outs in every game that's not a playoff game.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
You're going to have 12 teams who are playing for something. And what's that leave you with? Like 70 other teams, who are going to be in, bowl games that don't matter. And, other than, playing for pride, finishing off your season, getting your double, all those different things that we're talking about. And I just think that you're going to continue to see many more opt-outs in those games.
Right.
And, it's a good thing that the NCAA did pass this waiver for the red shirt thing where you can play in your 4 during the regular season. And then they give you a waiver for a 5th game because you need it, like look at where Notre Dame's roster is between guys entering the transfer portal plus the opt-outs and some, look at the receiver position, some of the stuff that you're left with and where you are. I think that they absolutely it's a great thing. It's one of the few good things that you can actually say, hey, NCAA, good job. I'm glad you did it. Yeah. But again, I just think once it expands next year and you've got 12 teams playing in the, in the tournament that matters, I think that you're going to see even more opt-outs because of what you said. It's like everyone, we've been through it with all these decisions Notre Dame has made. You're absolutely right. It's a complete status symbol now, and guys are opting out who have no business opting out.
Yeah, I mean, the opt-outs will go lower just because there'll be 12 teams that won't have opt-outs, right away. But the rest will all opt out like that. I mean, and that's the point that you're making. And so, it'll be interesting to see what happens to the rest of the bowl games outside of the ones that are involved in the playoff because yikes. I mean, yeah, it's going to be you want to talk about meaningless bowl games now, they become even more meaningless moving forward.
So there's a couple questions about kicking, and I'll get to the other one here about the Coles camp in a second. So Mark wants to know, for Vince, as the dad of a kicker, what's your stance on the place kicking team doing the same good job head bumps on missed kicks?
No, it's stupid. You don't celebrate a miss. No, absolutely not. No, you do not celebrate a miss. I am very much against that. And if you
can pat the guy in the head or the butt and say, hey, get it next time.
Absolutely.
But whatever you do when you make it, you don't do the same thing when you miss.
No.
Yeah, it's got to be a little bit different.
Yeah, no, you don't celebrate a miss. Sorry. No, right. Way against it, Mark. Way against it.
So DK wants to know about the Coles kicking camp. Vince's son, Dylan, tweeted the video. Now, tell me about, I couldn't see what happened at the end of that kick. Did he make that field goal in the video? And how long was that?
It's funny that you should ask. I've got it right here. So I'm gonna pull it up and we'll see if we can see it.
Of course you've got it right here.
All right. Can we see that right there?
I mean, it's there, but again,
okay. Well, it's a 50-yard field goal.
Okay.
And it crosses, it hits that. So the field goals were set up right in front of the net. So wherever it hits the net and starts coming back down is where it crossed the plane of the field goal post. You know what I'm saying? So it was on the it was on the left side. It went in, but it was at the top of the field goal post. Like it was at the very top. That thing probably would have been good from 55, 50 or 60. Like it was, he crushed that thing. So bottom line, the question is, tell us about the Coles kicking camp. It was kind of crazy. There was a lot going on. There's about 300 kids there. My kid did a good job. He got invited to the Future Stars camp down in Florida, where they take like the tippy top of the group. They take to the underclassmen challenge. I was about 10 guys out of the 300, and then another 6 guys they invited to this other combine that's down in Florida, and that's the one he got invited to. So he was just on the outside looking in of the top 50 kids in the country. So he's going to be going to the next one. So
very nice.
Booked our plane tickets, and we're headed to Panama City Beach during Martin Luther King Jr. weekend.
Okay.
So
February, early February.
It's middle of January.
Oh, that's right.
Middle of January.
I think I was thinking
that's President's. Yeah, that's President's.
Yeah.
So should be a lot of fun. Gets to compete against the best, and
awesome.
He's starting to think about not playing soccer now, which is crazy. So
you can't do that. You still got to play soccer.
He's got his senior year. That's all
that helps his kicking, right?
Although
I mean,
it makes him tired. It's a lot of wear on the legs, and so he's got some fatigue when they're both at the same time.
Probably a good point.
But
at the same time, doesn't it help build up the leg or? Yeah, the fatigue I can see, like especially if
that's really what it ended up being. When the soccer season ended, there was still about a month of football left, and he got stronger and stronger as the time went on because he didn't have soccer as well. So,
Berkshire wants to know, realistically, can Coach Shrews build the basketball team into a perennial top 25 team? I think so. Mike Bray did it. It's just it's going to take some time. The roster. He basically had to throw a whole roster together, go out in the portal plus freshmen and stuff like that. So it's just going to take some time. He knew that there would be growing pains. We all knew that there would be growing pains. I think that you definitely have to be patient. It wasn't going to happen overnight. Like what you're seeing, and even the biggest thing is now remember what you're looking at right now. And he said this from the very beginning. Remember what you're looking at right now, and then compare it to what you see like the last couple of weeks of February and into the ACC tournament. Like what kind of progress has been made. That's what you got to look for. It's going to be incremental progress. It's not going to happen overnight, but are they at the very least going to be competitive? And they're probably not going to be competitive with teams at the top of the conference, but are they at least competitive with teams middle to lower?
Right.
And again, what's it look like now compared to what it looks like at the end of the season?
Look, they were picked to be last in the ACC. Anything besides last in the ACC, I think you've overachieved according to the way they predicted things were going to go, right? And I don't think they're going to be last in the ACC. I think they're going to get 5-6 wins in the ACC, end up in the bottom third, but they're not going to be last, right? And so, this team has already gotten better from what we saw at the beginning of the season. Now that the competition is going to ramp up, but this is going to be a team that's not going to quit. I know this is all going to sound cliche, but they're not going to quit. They generally play pretty darn good defense. They definitely value defense over offense right now, but that's how you build a program.
And that's going to keep them in some games that maybe they don't deserve to be in.
Absolutely.
Sometimes.
Absolutely. So I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
And that's kind of, I'm looking at, again, like when they get to that mid to late February, do they maybe knock off a team that you wouldn't have thought that they were going to knock off? They're not going to do that right now, but do they have a chance to do that later on? Jesse's here.
Yay, Jesse! Woo!
Woo! Vince, I know that have you like overstayed at this point? Are you being called? Are you being summoned out the door right now?
Yes, the aforementioned kicker just walked in. He's like, "Dad, we got to go." I'm
okay,
like, all right.
Appreciate you coming on tonight.
No problem.
Little practice stuff.
Yeah. I will see you guys later.
All right.
Bye, Jesse.
Sounds
Bye,
good.
Vince. See you later, buddy.
With that, Jesse, you're here. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do this. I'm right on time, baby.
All right. Coming in smoking. I tried to play a soundbite earlier and it was too short. So hopefully these sound bites that I have that I'm about to play are not too short. We're going to start off with Steve Angeli. He's going to make his first career start, of course, in the Sun Bowl. He spoke with the media after practice today. He was asked about quarterbacks and the transfer portal and what he might be thinking. And here is what Steve Angeli had to say.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy world, but, I chose Notre Dame for the place, and I chose it for the people, so that's kind of at my heart of hearts what I believe in, and that's kind of what keeps me grounded and staying in the moment.
All right, so there is the initial answer, staying grounded, staying in the moment. Okay, everything sounds good. And then he was asked, could that potentially change in the future?
My biggest thing is just staying in the moment, and I think I'll worry about that when that comes.
Stay in the moment, Jess. So what do you think when you hear all that from Steve Angeli?
When I hear that, I think that Steve Angeli is primarily focused on one thing at hand, and that's the bowl game. I don't think he cares about anything that has led up to this point, anything that's going to come after this point. All he's cared about is what he's going to do with his opportunity, because he's going to be the starting quarterback for Notre Dame in a bowl game. Like, that's got to be a lifelong dream, right? Like, to be the starting quarterback for Notre Dame, that has to be, what his overall goal was. And now he gets to do it in arguably the biggest game of the season and hopefully help Notre Dame get to their 10th win on the year. And so I like it because, again, it feels like he's been saying, he's very grounded in the moment and he'll let everything else kind of take care of itself afterwards.
Yeah. And I mean, really, he can't afford to have his mind in another place right now, because even if he is planning on leaving, this is a big opportunity for him in the Sun Bowl. This is a chance at a very minimum, two different things that are like the same, but separate at the same time. He has a chance to make a real impression on his coaching staff, Marcus Freeman and his quarterbacks coach, since he doesn't have a full-time offensive coordinator with him right now. But he's got a chance to make a big impression on them in terms of, this is what I can be. This is why I deserve my shot at being the quarterback here at Notre Dame. And next to that, it's a chance to put that on film for other people to see, regardless of what ends up happening in his future. But he was, it's not like he was going to come out and say, hey, yeah, I'm ready to jump 2 feet into the transfer portal. Said the right things. And now he's just got to focus on the Sun Bowl, which is just a little bit more than a week away at this point, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, actually.
Yes.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Jared Parker is a head coach before Tommy Rees.
It is not surprising that Jared Parker is a head coach, because, and I'm gonna put it in a way that I'm gonna explain it in a way that's not surprising, because I don't think Tommy Rees wants to be a head coach at the college level, and so I think they have different aspirations, and so to me, it's not surprising. I guess. Yeah, so I was surprised that Jared Parker took the head coaching position. That caught me off guard. But if you were to ask me who do you think would have become a college head coach first, Jared Parker or Tommy Rees, I would tell you Jared Parker, just because I don't think that's what Tommy Rees's aspirations are.
See, I would have thought. Now, did you specify college?
Yes,
head coach?
college.
Okay,
head coach.
Okay, I can see that, because again, it's like Tommy Rees probably could.
I think he's already had his own opportunities, and he said no.
Exactly. Like, his name came up when the Indiana job came open this year. There was no way that I ever saw Tommy Rees leaving Alabama, or even, like if he was still at Notre Dame, leaving Notre Dame to go become the head coach at a place like Indiana. I think at a very minimum, he's going to go, like, if he were going to become a college head coach, I just don't see him, specifically, I don't see him starting in the group of 5 like Jared Parker is starting, right? Like at a very minimum, I think it would have been, I don't even know, do we even call it a Power 5 conference now? Is it Power 4? Like, I don't know what we're even calling this thing anymore. But like that, at a very minimum, it was going to be there. I never could have seen him going to Indiana. I think you're right. I think he has his sights set bigger on the NFL. Like, it's funny hearing Steve Angeli saying what he said, because a couple of off seasons ago, when we had a chance to talk to Tommy Rees, and I think it was right after, it might have been, when Marcus Freeman was named head coach and we got a chance to talk to, I asked him, do you want to be an NFL coordinator? And he went with basically what Steve Angeli said. My feet are grounded. I am where my feet are. I'm right here. I'm in the moment. All those different kind of things. I think that ultimately he wants to be in the NFL, and just look at what being the offensive coordinator at Alabama has done for everybody else before him. Like, those guys have all had, most of them have had NFL opportunities. I guess, like, even Sarkisian, he had an NFL opportunity, and now he's a head coach, obviously, at Texas. So I think that I agree. I think that that's what Tommy Rees wants to do. But at the same time, I do think it's a little, it's a little interesting that because of sort of, the kind of things that we were saying about Tommy Rees even a year ago, that Jared Parker ends up being the head coach first, because he'd only been a coordinator for 1 year. And yet all these people, with a lot bigger conversations about Tommy than Jared before this all came up just yesterday.
Yeah.
So former Notre Dame and current LSU offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock could be in the mix to come back to Notre Dame. I've seen some of the jabronis debating his candidacy on the old X platform, and there's this sentiment that Denbrock is not a great fit for Notre Dame, and he's only currently riding the reputation of Jaden Daniels' Heisman Trophy season. Do you buy or sell that as an argument against Mike Denbrock?
I would currently sell that as an argument against Mike Denbrock. And, I didn't realize the kind of interconnected weave that Mike Denbrock has, because he started out at Grand Valley State, and that's, where Brian Kelly started. And then he was at Notre Dame, bounced around to a couple places, came back to Notre Dame until 2016. And then 2017, he goes to Cincinnati, and that's, where he meets Marcus Freeman. And then after Cincinnati, he goes down to LSU back again with Brian Kelly. So the interweave of kind of meeting Marcus Freeman before Marcus Freeman was head coach at Notre Dame, and also being at Notre Dame and, with Brian Kelly, it's just like this deep web that kind of goes back. But listen, I think Mike Denbrock has a tremendous amount of experience. I can't say I personally know a ton about him in terms of offensive coordinator. Like, I haven't watched like the LSU team this much this year, but I think that there is a lot of talent on that LSU team. I think it helps that he has a Heisman quarterback, but I don't buy that, he's only good for those reasons.
What had Jaden Daniels done before he started working with Mike Denbrock?
Right. Like, he got run out of Arizona.
Yes. Like, he had 10 touchdown passes and 10 interceptions in his last season at Arizona State. He gets to LSU at the same time Mike Denbrock got to LSU. Like, are we only crediting Brian Kelly with the Jaden Daniels success? Like, these two, Jaden Daniels had done nothing. He was a cast off from Arizona State. He goes to work with Mike Denbrock, and in his second season there, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. To me, that is nothing but good on Mike Denbrock. And then look at Cincinnati. Who was the offensive coordinator when Cincinnati became the only Group of 5 team to make it to the college football playoff?
Mike Denbrock.
So my only thing with Mike Denbrock is he going to be financially, like, is it going to be too steep a price to pay? Now, reportedly, because like we were talking yesterday, I didn't think it was realistic at all because of the new contract extension that he got there at LSU and all these different things. How much does the relationship with Brian Kelly come into play? Because as you said, their relationship goes all the way back to Grand Valley State. Like, they coached together there. They were, they've been together for a long time. They are very good friends, and they're back there at LSU, and apparently he likes it there. So like, how much is that going to weigh into it? But again, even bigger picture, the buyout to get Mike Denbrock seemed to be, yesterday when we were talking about it, it seemed to be a big hurdle for Notre Dame to have to clear. Reportedly, though, he has not actually signed that extension yet, which kind of that throws a little bit different wrinkle into this whole thing. It makes things interesting. So I guess the bottom line is maybe it's not as unrealistic as it seemed yesterday, again, because of that, potential buyout that Notre Dame would have to pay after all the things, that they went through last year with Ludwig and all that stuff. But to the original question, I just like, Jaden Daniels is only a good thing. It is only a huge feather in Mike Denbrock's cap, because Mike Denbrock made Jaden Daniels just as much, if not more so, than Jaden Daniels made Mike Denbrock. There was no Jaden Daniels anyone was talking about 2 years ago before he started working with Mike Denbrock at LSU.
Yeah, so. I mean, Jaden Daniels is only a thing because of his time at LSU, and that's a direct correlation to Mike Denbrock. There was no guarantee that Daniels was going to be good. He had to be kind of molded into, what he is now.
Fill in the blank. The hiring of the next offensive coordinator means blank for Marcus Freeman.
The hiring of the next offensive coordinator means everything for Marcus Freeman. I think it is a huge statement year. You're now in year 3. Those expectations continue to tick up. You have an expanded playoff. And so, I think that, and especially with last year being, in my opinion, Notre Dame having a defense that was definitely, playoff worthy, and you could probably even maybe make the argument national championship worthy. And so the offense was the side of the ball that kind of, in my opinion, let the team down, right? And so you're going into year 3, expanded playoffs. The expectation is to make the playoffs. You're going to have a lot of people coming back on defense. You're going to have your defensive coordinator coming back. I think that you have to hit a home run on this offensive coordinator, because it's going to be that missing piece of the puzzle, and it's going to be what determines how successful Marcus Freeman is in year 3.
Yeah, very important, at different levels, as people are saying in the chat. Look, this is career defining is what it is. This is third offensive coordinator in as many seasons for Marcus Freeman. They did, whatever degree you want to call success for Jared Parker this year. Look, there were things that you could obviously nitpick with how things went offensively. This is year 3 for Marcus Freeman. Even if he had Jared Parker by his side still, this was going to be, make or break might be a little bit much, but look, let's just face it. Marcus Freeman has used up all the free passes I think that he's going to get to this point. And he has to nail this hire, because look at where he's gone. He's had to hire a new offensive line coach. He has had to hire a new wide receivers coach. He brought in the defensive line coach. He brought in the defensive coordinator, on and on and on. Where this staff is right now, it is mostly his hires. And now, to different degrees, they have mostly, I won't say all, they have mostly turned out pretty well. But what was the biggest question? The offense. He has got to nail this now. There are no excuses for this, because going into year 3, you're going to have an expanded playoff. You've got a favorable schedule next year. You cannot afford for the offense to be what holds you back next year. With a championship caliber defense and almost everybody on that defense coming back, plus now you're going to insert some of the young talent that you've been recruiting. He's got to nail this 100%. There can be no doubt with this hire. It has got to be, and I'm not saying you've got to win the headlines and all that stuff, but when it comes down to it, producing on the field, it has got to end up being a home run type hire. There can be no mistakes made with this one.
Yes.
So we've got a couple, before we move on and talk about some of the other stuff, we do have some different things. Wicked Broncos Productions, thank you for the super chat. He said if he had his pick at offensive coordinator, it would definitely be the Missouri offensive coordinator. And he is talking about Kirby Moore. He is young and is a feisty recruiter, which fits Freeman. And he made Brady Cook and that Mizzou offense electric and landed 5 stars. Did you know that Kirby Moore was Kellen Moore's brother, by the way?
No, I did not know that.
He is. This is something that
That explains some things.
Yes. I mean, I don't think a lot of us knew a whole lot about Kirby Moore before yesterday. I mean, obviously, if you followed Missouri closely, you did, but I mean, there are a lot of good things to like about Kirby Moore. And I don't think that it's necessarily just Kirby Moore who's bringing in those 5 stars. I think Eli Drinkwitz, that is something similar to Marcus Freeman. Drinkwitz, he can recruit, and obviously his staff can recruit. So I think that is a really good thing as well. And I think we've got to kind of continue to look at him a little bit more. But as of right now, these are the 2 primary names. I know that there are a lot of throwing darts at the bulletin board and different guys coming up with their lists of who they'd want to hire and all this kind of stuff. I mean, there is no doubt that when you look at the Missouri offense and what they were able to do, especially when you consider it's Missouri and it's the SEC, the kind of teams they beat, and what that offense was able to do, it's very impressive. There's no doubt about that.
JUCO transfer running back into one of the best running backs in the country.
Right. Absolutely. So, I'm not ready to definitively make a decision that he is necessarily the guy right now, because as Wicked Bronco says, what Moore did at Mizzou is more impressive than what Denbrock did at LSU. I mean, I think you can kind of debate that. I mean, I guess you can say that LSU, had more talent and whatever else. But again, they took Jaden Daniels from a nobody 2 years ago and turned him into a guy who threw for over 3,800 yards and ran for over 1,000 yards and accounted for 50 touchdowns in a season in the same conference Missouri was in. So I don't know, which one is more impressive. It's probably kind of dependent on, who you probably have already determined you want the guy to be. But I think, if those are the top 2 guys right now, I think they're both very good candidates.
Yeah. And so when I think about Kirby Moore and knowing that, his brother is Kellen Moore, I would have to assume that they have very similar kind of ideologies or way that they think about things in terms of football. And I would say what Kirby Moore could potentially be is a lot like Tommy Rees, to be honest with you. I think a guy who can be very innovative, very, I guess the word might say is futuristic, kind of always coming up with, new schemes and stuff like that. But I didn't know that those 2 were brothers, and he was actually a wide receiver and Kellen was a quarterback. So they played together at Boise State
right
at the same time, which is kind of crazy too. So yeah, again, I don't know too much about Kirby Moore, but he reminds me again a lot of Kellen Moore, Tommy Rees, kind of, those type of offensive coordinators.
I mean, when you think about it, I've always thought that there are a lot of similarities between Kellen Moore and Tommy Rees.
Yes.
I mean, they kind of both follow the same path. They're both still very young, still both very good offensive minds. It's why they got the jobs that they've got to begin with. But both still kind of also sort of learning as they go. They both moved on, in the same off season. David Carpenter, another Cowboys fan, says if Kirby gets the offensive coordinator job, who wins a championship first, Kellen or Kirby? Well, as of right now, Kellen's job security is not in very good place because they just fired the head coach out there with the Chargers. So he doesn't even know where he's going to be next year, let alone, how close to a championship if he is. So I'm going with Kirby on this one. I'll just go Kerbo. No disagreement there?
No disagreement.
Ira Steele says, what about the fact that Freeman can stick it to Kelly by getting Denbrock? Priceless, in his opinion. I mean, that is very true, but you've got to look at the other side of this. And I was thinking about this earlier today. If you're Brian Kelly, who wanted to take Tommy Rees with him down to LSU, but Tommy stayed at Notre Dame instead with Marcus Freeman. So now if you're Brian Kelly and you've got Mike Denbrock, who becomes this hot commodity. Like, aren't you probably doubling, even tripling down, trying to make sure that that Mike Denbrock doesn't end up back at Notre Dame? I think that he would kind of be pulling on that rope pretty hard to make sure that Mike stays, don't you?
Yeah, I think he'd start playing that game just a little bit.
Yeah. I think, and let's not forget, and I'm not saying that Notre Dame doesn't have resources. It's a matter of how they choose to use their resources. LSU's got a lot of resources to try to keep Mike Denbrock around. They've already shown that they were willing to do it once. I do find it curious, though, that at least a couple weeks after that extension, that reportedly Mike Denbrock has not signed that contract extension yet. So again, that does kind of change things a little bit. So you may have seen this video clip of UCLA head coach Chip Kelly in the last few days, talking about what he would change about college football. If you haven't seen it, well, here you go.
Is the biggest issue that you might have right now, whether it be realignment, NIL, transfer portal, and what would your plan maybe be to try to solve it?
I think they're all a problem, and I think we need to have a conference commissioner. I think football should be separate from the other sports. Just the fact that our school is leaving to go to the Big Ten in football, our softball team should be playing Arizona in softball. Our basketball team should be playing Arizona in basketball. But because football left, and they're saying, well, how do you do that? Well, Notre Dame's independent in football, and they're in a conference and everything else. I think we should all be independent in football. And you can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power Five, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of Five. And we separate it, and we play each other. You can have the West Coast teams, and then every year we play 7 games against the West Coast teams, and then we play the East. So we play Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, West Virginia, Virginia. Then the next year you play against the South while you still play your 7 teams. You can play a 7-game schedule. You can play 4 against another division opponent, and you can always play against one Mountain West team every year so that we can still keep those rivalries going. Not that I've really thought about this. Not that I've a lot of spent time on this. But I think if you went together collectively as a group and said there's 132 teams and we all share the same TV contract, so that the Mountain West doesn't have one and the Sun Belt doesn't have another and SEC has one and they have another, that we all go together, that's a lot of games, and there's a lot of people in the TV world that would go through it. You can sponsor each one. Instead of calling it Group of Five and Power Five, you can call it Amazon, Nike, bid that out to things. You can do a lot of different things. But I think if we still do the same thing and take all that money, and I would do this, and I think this needs to be done, that money now needs to be shared with the student athletes, and there needs to be revenue sharing, and the players should get paid, and you can get rid of NLI, and the schools should be paying the players because the players are what the product is. And the fact that they don't get paid is really the biggest travesty. Not that I've thought about it.
All right. So that's UCLA head coach Chip Kelly. And I'm going to get to this in just a second, but we have breaking news. Notre Dame has just officially announced Lauren Landau as its new, I want to get the title correct, Director of Football Performance. So we'll get to Lauren Landau here in a minute. While the Chip Kelly stuff is fresh in our mind, though, let's talk about that after that long soundbite that we just played from Chip Kelly. So, Jess, anything you disagree with, anything you strongly agree with? What did you think of what you just heard from Chip Kelly there?
Yeah, I honestly don't have a lot that I disagree with, because essentially what he's saying is, football should just become independent because they generate enough revenue that they can travel across the country, do these games in a 2-day span, and be able to come back, right? And then I think, when he's talking about for these other sports, softball, basketball, baseball, like those kind of not as much revenue generating, they don't have the expenses, they don't have the time to travel across the country quite like football does. And so I think it completely makes sense, because if you're your own kind of group of 64, you can schedule in a way, like he's saying, where you can play a variety of teams every year. Excuse me.
Mute button.
and still be able, to accomplish what you want. And so I don't disagree a whole lot with what Chip Kelly is saying.
No, I mean, the biggest thing that I agree with is football should be separate from all these other sports at their
Right.
schools. And now, like whether or not it's
To
feasible.
what degree that is, though.
Yeah. Like, but he's absolutely right about when it comes to this conference realignment, it's about football and it's about the TV money that the football programs are
That's
making.
all
And
of
these
this.
these schools can still get the football TV money regardless of what their Olympic sports are doing. Whether the baseball and the softball team have to travel cross country from West Coast to East Coast to play a conference game in the middle of or series or whatever in the middle of a week. There's no reason that needs to happen. Those should be kept regional, and the football should at the very least be separate. Whether or not you're redoing this and repooling it, I mean, it obviously makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of people that think that that's the way college football is going. That ultimately the Power Five is going to break off, kind of the way that he's talking about. And then, you just kind of have regionalized pods and stuff like that, which are basically what? Just conferences.
Right, exactly.
If it ends up like that, because that's really all he's describing are conferences. And I see people talking about ESPN. This isn't just about ESPN, because remember, Fox is a huge part of that Big Ten TV contract, and NBC is also at least a part of that Big Ten TV contract. And, CBS is a part of that Big Ten TV contract. So there's all these networks throwing different levels of money around. It's not just ESPN. It is all these others as well. They're just as culpable in all this. So, I mean, I agree with the majority of what he's saying. I just don't think that it's going to happen anytime in the near future, because they've already signed all these TV contracts, and now, you're essentially going to be asking the Big Ten and the SEC to give up their bigger revenue and share it with all these other schools. And I don't see that happening. Sure, everyone could have a cut of the pie, but I don't think it's going to happen. But the other side of this is, because he mentioned Notre Dame, it's like Notre Dame is independent. He said everybody should be independent. So now, you've got years and years and years, you've got everybody talking about Notre Dame needs to join a conference, and you've got Chip Kelly basically saying everyone just needs to do what Notre Dame is doing. But again, not everyone's going to be as in demand as Notre Dame to make that happen.
And that's the issue.
That's right. So in the meantime, Notre Dame did just announce that Lauren Landau is the new director of football performance. And I will read you part of the release. This is a quote from Marcus Freeman. When we sat down to evaluate what exactly we wanted from this role, we identified several characteristics as being critical to the success of the position. We need someone who can reinforce the vision of the head coach and uphold the standards in discipline that it takes to create a championship environment. We need someone who has a background in group training, yet the expertise to individualize training to meet specific individuals' needs and goals. So group training, but also he wants to be able to individualize stuff. We need someone who can enhance our approach in regards to power, explosion, and speed development. End quote. So Landau was with the Denver Broncos as their strength coach from 2018 to 2022. And he built his reputation on individual training of professional athletes in multiple sports. There were a number of high-profile and current and former NFL players who are also clients of Landau. They include Von Miller, Christian McCaffrey, Peyton Manning, former Notre Dame and Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion Ryan Harris has also worked with him. So strength coaches, Jesse, it is just so much different than an offensive coordinator or even an offensive line coach or a defensive line coach or whatever it happens to be. They have obviously evaluated this guy and talked to this guy. And it sounds like when you talk about old school versus new school, which seemed to be the divide between, Marcus Freeman and Matt Balis, it sounds like Lauren Landau's philosophies more match up with Marcus Freeman. So what do you think of all this?
Yeah, a lot to digest there.
You think?
I would say, on a surface level, because again, I didn't even know that this guy was going to be the guy, or this is who they were looking at until like 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago. But the thing that sticks out the most to me is that he's got professional NFL experience. And I think that is, to me, like the thing that shines the most when looking at his resume. And then you start looking at, some of the players that you mentioned that he's worked with. And it's like when you talk about Christian McCaffrey, I mean, we're talking about one of the most explosive, dynamic,
Elite. Yeah.
multi-talented positional guys out there. And so when you combine those things on paper, it sounds really great to me, right? And if he's gone through, all of this kind of, vetting and interviews and conversations with Marcus Freeman, then I think so as well, that it's just got to be a good, solid choice. But to me, like if he had not had the NFL experience, I might be questioning it a little bit more. But I like the concept of team and individual. So I think everyone is different in terms of what they need in order, for preparation, training, etc.
Lauren Hamilton, fair point. He got canned from his last job. Let's not forget, virtually every coach gets fired at some point. Like,
It's true.
And most of them end up getting new jobs someplace. Bill Belichick was fired once as well by the Cleveland Browns, and it ended up working out pretty well for him in the long run. Pete Carroll was fired a couple of times, ended up working out for Pete pretty well in the long run. Again, like the reason he was fired apparently is from what I understand, there were like some soft tissue type things going on. There was also a coaching change made last year, so let's not forget that.
That's true.
They went from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton, and again, Marcus Freeman wants, as he said in this statement, Marcus Freeman wants someone who shares the same vision and kind of has the same philosophies that he's looking for, and maybe that was different than what Sean Payton had. I don't know specifically if Sean decided that he wanted to bring in his own guy, but again, like the injury history apparently is one of the things that was talked about with Lauren Landau as a reason. But there was this, someone tagged us on this podcast yesterday, and a guy, who was hosting the podcast has apparently talked to a lot of former Broncos players and not just Broncos players, but other NFL guys that Landau has worked with, and they all spoke very highly of him, praised him, said that they would work with him, all that different stuff. Ryan Harris, I know Brian Driscoll has talked to Ryan Harris, again, former Denver Bronco, and Ryan Harris speaks highly of Lauren Landau. And I know Brian is working on getting Ryan on, to try to, get him on the show and talk more specifically about that. So I just, again, like, what do any of us really know about what goes on with the strength coach other than there's, there's weightlifting, there's conditioning, there's agility, there's all this different stuff that goes on, and really no one ever really starts talking bad about the strength coach until you get a couple hamstring pulls, or you get a couple quad pulls or something like that, or you get late in the season in November and guys like are fatiguing in the fourth quarter and those kind of things. So I mean, the guy's worked in the NFL, and he's been vetted by the head coach. So I don't know what else that you can really say at this point.
Same.
Okay. Fill in the blank. Cal McCord transferring to Ohio State, or to Syracuse from Ohio State, is blank.
Is head scratching, right? Because I understand. To me, the only reason Kyle McCord was a quarterback at Ohio State this year is I think he had the best relationship with the best player on their offense. And that's Marvin Harrison Jr. They were teammates in high school. They were teammates again in Ohio State. Obviously, McCord has a long experience of throwing balls to Marvin Harrison Jr. So I think personally they stuck it out with him because they felt like that connection was the best thing for the offense, right? But I don't. The head scratching part to me is why Syracuse of all places, because I don't. Didn't what is it, the best? Yeah, DeVito, isn't he the best quarterback to come out of Syracuse recently? And aren't they also going through a head coaching transition as well? So it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of stability. So I didn't expect him to go to Syracuse, and that's the part that's head scratching for me.
Yeah, I mean, especially to go from Ohio State to Syracuse. Now he was going to go to Nebraska, but Dylan Raiola is at Nebraska, and that appears to have, made, had some influence potentially on this decision. But again, it's like, it feels like there are a lot of different programs that a guy who has lost one game in his college career, could go to other than Syracuse. Like it's not like, even if maybe there was some sort of mutual decision at Ohio State to go someplace else, it would seem like there would have been, some higher stature, higher profile programs in line for his services than Syracuse. So I don't know if they just put together a great NIL package or what, but it completely shocks me as well to hear that McCord is going to be orange next year. Fill in the blank. It's blank that after Dylan Raiola flipped from Georgia to Nebraska, the top 10 recruits in the current 2024 signing class are all set to go to 10 different schools.
It's electric, right? Because who wants to see all the good players continue to stack up at the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Clemsons of the world? And I think we have the portal and the NIL to thank, to be quite honest with you, because if there's a better situation and there's more money on the line, guys aren't all going to go to the same spot and sit around, right? Everyone wants to play now. Everyone believes they have the talent to play now. And so I love it because to me, it is like an equal distribution amongst the college football playing field, right? And so I think it makes it genuinely harder, or to me, more impressive of how good of a head coach you are. Because, like, I get it. Saban's a great coach. He's built up the empire. But I want to see Saban coach when he's got to go against all the other teams that have 5-star and 4-star recruits at this point. And so I think it's electric because it balances out the playing field.
I don't think NIL is the only thing at play here because, like, in Raiola's case specifically, just to use him, his dad did go to Nebraska, so you at least have the connection there. But he was set to go to Georgia, and he's not going to go to Georgia now. And we know what Georgia has been the last few years, and obviously the last couple of years with national championships. I do think NIL is playing a big part in this. Again, not the only part, but I do think it is playing a big part. And this is something that I, kind of thought would happen with the advent of NIL, that it would start to basically do this, that not everybody was going to be going to Georgia and Alabama, and it would start to spread these guys out because, there's essentially only so much cash, I think, that every school, even the elite ones, can come up with. And there's a reason that Nick Saban was kicking and screaming about NIL just a little bit more than a year ago, because now it's going to take
work harder.
He can't stockpile all the talent now, and it's going to spread it out. And I think it's going to be better for college football as a whole. And I think, like, specifically as we sit here and talk about Notre Dame, I think it's going to help out Notre Dame as well as they continue to try to get back into that national championship type playing field. I think it's going to be good for them. And especially when you start to look at what they've been able to do with the transfer portal and some other stuff and what they've been able to do with NIL, I think it's going to help Notre Dame. I think it's going to be good for them. So, Jess, the Tennessee Titans wore their throwback Houston Oilers uniforms while hosting the Houston Texans on Sunday. Rate that move on a scale of 1 to 10.
For me personally, it's a 10 out of 10 because the jerseys are a 10 and the pettiness is on a 10 because you're basically saying that we're the better Houston team. You're not the respected Houston team, and we're not even in Houston anymore. And so, I think it's a 10 out of 10 because there's one of my favorite uniforms. And again, the pettiness was right on scale.
I completely agree. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, though. It would have been a 10 out of 10, but they lost.
Yeah, had they actually won.
Had they actually
And they
won
blew
the
it,
game,
too.
That's right. It would have been a complete 10 out of 10. But those are baller uniforms, man. Those are awesome uniforms. And they even had like Oilers in the end zone there in Tennessee. Personally, you know, I don't think that they can put the oil derricks on their helmet there in Tennessee. But personally, like everything else, I think the Titans need to go back to that specific color scheme because it looks so much better than anything they've had since they've been in Tennessee.
They remind me of the Ole Miss uniforms that I love, those powder blues with the red and white. I just think it's a really good combination of colors.
Yeah, it is really sharp.
John
it's a
with
good looking uniform.
Uh-oh.
What? John says, I got mixed up. I thought the Texans were wearing the Oilers uniform. No, it was the Titans who were wearing the Oilers uniform. So John thought it was a 10. So I guess he's going to give it a 0 now. TD4ND, you don't know me. Like, I don't know what you're talking about here. Sounds like we're getting close to a Dallas discussion, he says. He's like, he knows where this is going. We've drifted into the NFL talk toward the end of the show. So he's feeling it right now. Scale of 1 to 10, rate Julian Love's final interception to seal the Seahawks win over Philadelphia last night.
That also was a 10 out of 10. And I'm not just saying that because, you know, it sealed the deal against those dirty bird, you know, Eagles, but it's just like if you watch the game and you saw the replay at the end, I mean, he barely got those toes down and he was right across the sideline. And I think I saw the stat that he had to cover like 25 yards in a span of like, you know, just over 2 seconds. And the catch rate was, you know, 10% or lower. And so it was, to me, it felt like a very Kyle Hamilton type play, if we're being honest. You know, that interception he made against, what was it, Louisville to start the season where he came all the way across to the sideline. That's what it reminded me of. And again, he barely got, like, I'm not kidding you, I think he got his toe down by like this much.
I know.
And so like it barely touched the blade of grass.
They never really zoomed in on it, you know, exactly where that toe was, but I mean, it just barely.
And I think it made it even sweeter that it was his second one of the game and like second of at least like the fourth quarter, because I think Hurts threw that other one at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Right. I'm so much like I rated a 10. It was phenomenal. And like you said, it was really kind of a Kyle Hamilton type play. And obviously Julian Love is nowhere nearly as big as Kyle Hamilton, and you know, kind of makes you go like, oh yeah, he what might that college football playoff game have looked like if Julian Love had been able to play out there the whole game? But yeah, it was incredible. And you know, the only thing that I will say, since TD4ND accused us of, you know, wanting to drift into Dallas talk, is it helps out a certain team, you know, in Dallas, Texas, by knocking off Philadelphia. 3 straight losses now, baby. 3 straight losses. Even Brent and, you know, the 49ers fan Brent has to be loving that, because all the Niners have to do now is win 2 of their last 3 games, and they've got home field advantage in the playoffs. So huge play. And like, by the way, did you stay up and watch the on-field interview that Lisa Salters did with Drew Lock, the Seahawks?
Yeah, he was about to cry.
It was a really good interview by her, I think. You know, and like,
that moment has been accumulating for Drew Lock for 4 or 5 seasons now, and he didn't even know. I don't even think he knew he was going to play all week. Obviously, he had to prepare like he was going to play, but then it's always felt like
he found out just before the game,
right? And in his NFL career, it just felt like he's continuously, you know, kind of come up short. And I mean, when I say that man threw a dime ball to Jackson Smith-Njigba, that's exactly what he did. He probably threw the best pass of his entire career to win that game. And I just think it was just that moment where everything just kind of, all those emotions come flooding in, and you finally have that you know, the what's the correct word, that like the exhilarance of winning.
The 2 best balls that he threw all night were that one, and there was another deep ball to DK Metcalf.
Yeah, they went up and got.
Yeah, I mean, both receivers made spectacular catches, but the throws that he made, like his short stuff was not that great. You know, it was looking like, oh, this might end here pretty quickly. But those 2 deep balls, man, they were they were
And it was when
money
they
throws.
needed it, right? Like it was just tremendous.
Yep.
I always love watching the Eagles lose. So this 3-game skid is doing me well.
It was nice. It was nice. I'd like to go to a game in Seattle sometime. I was thinking that too. Like I would like to go to a game in Seattle.
I only
just
got
that
to walk
environment.
around the stadium, but I never been like into it, obviously, when a game is going on.
Yep. Oh, Brent's gonna hit you with this, Jess. Who's gonna win the NFL MVP?
I honestly don't know, but I truly, and I'm not just saying this to spite people, I don't think you can give it to Brock Purdy. He has so much around him and Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel that I don't understand. And you know, Trent Williams. And again, when those guys were injured, that's when San Francisco went on their 3-game losing skid. And so I just, you know, everyone has bad games. I get that. But I honestly can't tell you who I think if Tyreek gets 2,000 yards, I think you should give it to Tyreek. Like I don't know who the NFL MVP is.
I'm gonna go with Brock Purdy's vote. He said CMC. It's Christian McCaffrey, right? Like I think it's Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill, personally. Jalen Hurts eliminated himself last night. He's been exposed for the fraud that he is because the guys around him have not been playing at the same level that they played.
And I love how they're like,
and part of this year.
Jalen's not feeling well. He didn't know if he was going to play.
Now you don't understand football.
That's
Jesse.
all right. That's all right. I just, you know, Brock Purdy's playing well. I just don't think he's the MVP quarterback. If you put him on the Houston Texans, I don't think he performs as well as CJ Stroud has been performing this year. And that's just my honest opinion.
I think Brock Purdy has done what he's been asked to do, but
That's what I mean.
He's got, like of any of the guys being talked about as the candidates, he definitely has more talent around him than any. I mean, he's got Deebo Samuel, he's got Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle,
Williams,
even just those 3 are better than anybody else's 3 in the NFL right now. Yeah. The only one close is maybe Mostert, Waddle, and Hill down in Miami.
Yeah, when they're all healthy.
Right. Now you got to watch the All-22. NFL MVP, TD4ND. I agree. It's Taylor Swift, no doubt. Like taking the Chiefs down single-handedly.
Yeah.
Like if you're not a Chiefs fan, she's definitely the MVP. TD also wanted to know how the Muffet McGraw statue unveiling was. We didn't get a chance to talk about that yesterday. We were because we had so much other stuff come up, but it was pretty cool. It was, I think, one of the really cool aspects of the statue. One, it's got kind of that stern, Muffet look on her face, like you were always used to seeing on TV. I don't know if you've seen the close-ups or not, but Sarah Liebscher, who was up there, I think it was her doing it was either her or Molly Pyrick, said that the look on her face was like, it was basically the exact look that Muffet had so many times on the bench. And she said, like, she could feel her kind of looking over at the bench going, this is what we've got, huh? That kind of thing. So they captured the look on her face. I thought that was, really good. And the little touch that they did is the base of the statue. There are all these little shamrocks in the base of the statue. And there is one shamrock for every player who played for Muffet as head coach at Notre Dame. So there's a shamrock representing every player that she had at Notre Dame. So I thought that was a really cool touch that they added to that. And then, of course, Matt McGraw, her husband, with the, finishing touch, put the green scarf around her, on the statue. So that was cool too. We started this thing off. Jesse wasn't quite here yet. Salty wanted to know if you could whiteboard the successful offensive plays from the Cowboys-Bills game. You won't need more than one whiteboard, if even that.
There was neither quarterback had a passing day, man. The entire game revolved around one person, and that was James Cook. And listen, I like that game. Yeah, am I happy with it? No, but sometimes I think we get so caught up of being this team is that, or this team sucks, or this team is blah blah blah. Why can't we just give credit to the Bills for executing, to me, a beautiful game plan? Everyone knew that the Cowboys' run defense is the biggest weakness. And then you take out, their starting defensive tackle, and when they're starting a rookie Mozzie Smith at nose tackle. And then, you're running at him. And then if the Cowboys want to play so much man like they do, they allow James Cook to work one-on-one with linebackers. And so I'm mad that the Cowboys didn't have a response, but you have to give credit to Buffalo for having a game plan and executing it. And I think that's really all that happened on Sunday. And the other thing is,
I can settle this in much fewer words. This season is going to end like every other Cowboys season has ended. There's just that's where we are. This is lather, rinse, repeat. It's not going to end up in a Super Bowl. It's going to end up with a loss someplace on the road. BJ apparently just getting here. We did talk about Lauren Landau being hired as Notre Dame's new strength and performance coach. We touched on that a little bit ago. There was another comment. Brent wants to go back 30 years, or not quite 30, but 25 years, and talk about Kurt Warner having Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, and Torrey Holt around him. Three great players. There's no doubt about that. And Warner did end up being the MVP. That offense was a little different, though. Kurt Warner was doing different things than Kurt Warner was doing different things than Brock Purdy is being asked to do right now. There was a lot less game managing and a lot more. Let's put this game on Kurt Warner's arm because he has some guys to throw to. And let's remember, where did Kurt Warner come from? I mean, he came from the freaking Arena League, and he came in and just lit the world on fire in 1 year. That's right, DK. Kurt Warner did bag groceries before that. Okay, Brent's back down a little bit. He says he apologizes for the football. You completely understand football, but if Purdy continues to dive up the Baltimore D, he's winning the MVP. Well, I would still give it to CMC myself.
I just don't see. And there was a popular conversation going on about Tom Brady, and that he was the check down machine. Well, Tom Brady was making audibles based off of what he was reading in the defenses. Brock Purdy is running what Kyle Shanahan is force feeding him, spoon feeding him into his mouth. I don't think Kyle Shanahan trusts, Brock Purdy as much as Tom Brady was trusted at the line of scrimmage, audibling, setting, everything else that's going on. And that's why I have felt that Dak's game has been more impressive this season, because he is the one calling the shots at the line of scrimmage based off of what he sees, and he's getting into the matchup that he wants. I don't think Brock Purdy does as much of that. I think he's doing exactly what he's told to do.
I'm happy with how Dak has performed this year. Like if he had Christian McCaffrey and a George Kittle to go along with CeeDee Lamb, I think that offense would look a lot different than what it looks like even right now with what it's been doing. That's all I'm saying. It's like Kyle Shanahan is a hell of a coach, and they've got a lot of good talent out there around him, and they're a physical football team. Like that's what I wish.
The other thing, they set the tone.
What I wish Dallas was, but they're not. They're not a physical enough football team. So, all right. That's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate everybody being here today. We started off with some practice report, talked a little offensive coordinator. And again, the breaking news of the day, because you can't go a day without breaking news, Lauren Landau is the new strength and performance coach for Notre Dame. So that problem is solved. They have got it, and we will see kind of what that looks like going forward. Tomorrow is signing day. Early signing day starts tomorrow. And I know Brian and Ryan are they've got kind of a marathon thing scheduled. They're going to have a lot of guests on the show. So obviously be tuning in for that. And then we'll be back afterwards with a mailbag show as well to talk more football. So if you want to talk bowl game, offensive coordinator, all that stuff, we'll be doing that tomorrow on our show. Brian and Ryan will be doing the recruiting thing with a lot of different signees and families and parents and all that kind of stuff during the day. Jess, I know you've had a busy day at work, so thanks for coming in. TD4ND, thank you.
I got to go make some cookies
request.
now for work.
Hit the like button and, of course, subscribe, rate, and review, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.